Make America great again? What's good about America? Much less great. Well, I can tell you some of that, but I did want him to use a quote that said, "Make America better than ever before." I used to try to send that. I don't know if they ever saw it. I said, "Change it to that," But there are some things that were good about America that didn't exist in other countries and are great in a lot of ways. And I can name those things actually. And it's not our behavior. It's not a lot of times our behavior, but we sometimes followed through and fought for those things that were good and won a battle. And then that resulted in the economy being great and keeping laws of free market laws, which protected private property rights, which allowed a lot of people to live more peaceably. And then there's a lot of bad things that tricked us into allowing slavery to continue to exist through being slaves to the drug cartels. And so, but here's what was good about America and great about it. We were founded on the freedom of speech. And the freedom of speech to speak about religion, to seek the truth about religion, not just, that's the purpose of freedom of speech and politics and what's good about politics. Religion, there's not a religion if you have a dead God or a stone. You have to have a living God. That's pretty obvious sense. The religion needs to have a God. All right. So, but we're allowed to talk about that stuff without being harmed, blocked, silenced. We're supposed to not have to do all that. Democrats have continued to want us to be silenced and stuff. But that made us good because in One Nation Under God, we've created one nation under God, but it's not a theocracy. But the reason we ran here, we were getting hung for reading the Bible. The first settlers that came here, they were not here trying to take the Indians' land and all that. They were running from being hung for reading the Bible, wanted freedom. And the Indians, there weren't so many Indians here. There was a lot of open land. They weren't lying when they would go. They went back and would tell people, hey, there's lots of open land here, because that's what they saw. There was a lot of open land. And even now, if you go to, for instance, a lot of places in the country, Montana, different, but Florida, it's the most populated state, maybe. But I'm not sure about that. Maybe Texas is. And it's still large. It has open land. But Florida has the national forest. Lots of huge land. Tons of open land still. And imagine how open it was back then. So everything's not true that they say. But one, we had the freedom of speech. And number two, private property rights. Number three, slavery wasn't created in America. It actually came from Africa. And Europeans engaged in it. And I mean, over many years of the world, many countries engaged in it. But the first slavery I know of is in Africa, listed in the Bible, in Egypt. And people will argue that there's stuff before the Bible. Well, there wasn't anything before Adam and Eve. And there was stuff before the flood they might be able to find. But a lot of the writings from before the flood were destroyed in the flood. You see? So, but what religion reigned supreme over those and survived the flood? Christianity. Judaism, the Christianity, God's people. I mean, the people God created who believe God created us. I mean, we're all one human race. All right, so private property rights was a big deal, and then the free market system. Capitalism was created because Abraham Lincoln said, "I want everybody to be paid for their labor. Everybody deserves to be paid for their labor." And we got the Declaration of Independence that defines us as one human race. So it's not true that slavery came from America or just European nations, but the European nations came here trying to stop the people from being free who were escaping Europe. They brought that stuff, not the settlers who came here. The settlers who came here and finally got the freedom they fought for and won it in the Civil War. And Abraham Lincoln had the most power of any president in history when he won the Civil War. And because he could have made the whole nation, if he wanted to, he would have made the whole United States united us under slavery, and he got rid of that because that's what he wanted to do. He could have done anything he wanted. He could have gotten rid of all the Democrats, said, you go back to Europe. He could have put them all out of office, but he gave them a chance to come back in and come in under the new laws, and then he got killed. And so, but people respected what he did and tried to keep his rules, but he could have probably done a better job than they did during the transition had they not messed him up, shot him. But that was a Democrat that shot him, obviously. Somebody who wanted to keep slavery, or maybe was racist against black folks, and he killed Abraham Lincoln. So those are things that are good about the nation, and I can't say anymore because I got to end at 5 minutes. I didn't expect it to take this long.